It's not a dream, it's a memory.
Come now, Alice. It's only a dream. Forget it. Abandon that memory.
I can't. I'm trapped. Fire!
I've not come back here looking for a fight.
One's certainly looking for you.
One thing I love about Steam's summer sale is I get to play games I forgot existed, but I really enjoy. Like today's topic, Alice Madness Returns. I love this game. It hasn't aged great, but I still love this game. In fact, I love McGee as a creator. I hear he's working on another way. No. God damn, EA strikes again. Oh my god. So this was supposed to be a different type of video. I was just gonna make a quick review, a look back, you know, how many years later, look on Alice Return, Madness Return, but things change. I knew for the longest time I wanted to make a video on Alice Return, like what would a sequel, maybe a third game will look like. Because I love the IP, I love the idea, I love this dark take on a fantasy tale, you know, a grim tale, where she's literally the victim even more. But I hear that McGee was working hard, diligently so, on his game Bible to present to EA to see if they can fund another game. They said no. Now, before we continue with this conversation, I need you guys to do me a favor. Please go and download the free PDF of the game Bible for Alice Asylum. It is so good. It's about 200 something pages. I am page 47. Of course, I skimmed through it completely like anybody does when it comes to a game guide or a game Bible. But I've been looking through this and reading it, and it's so, I can't tell you the crime it is that we're not gonna get this game. It is beyond tier. It's sad, and I want to say maybe I have hope. That's a dream. Like if I can win the lottery right now and fund this myself, it will happen. But no, EA decided to get in the way of greatness. Damn. Originally, I was gonna make a whole video on Alice Madness Return, talking about the good, the bad, and the aging. But overall, the game's aged alright, decently so. Decently so indeed. If you play Alice Madness Return, then you understand that's a pretty good game. It's a pretty decent game. Good time. A long time, but a good time nonetheless. One thing I wanna do is just talk about a potential spiritual successor. Right? Because the only way this IP or this line of train is going to continue, right? This world, this realm of Alice is going to continue if you do a spiritual successor free from anything that EA can get their hands on. Because again, it's EA. Most of the time, anything they touch, they ruin. They've been doing that for quite a while, so we know how it works. If you look at my work in this channel, right? My main videos, the ones I'm mostly proud of, not the reviews, the ones I'm mostly proud of, are the ones where I talk about a game, what it could it be, how can it be brought back into this day and age. Take, for example, the Mega Mans. Take my favorite one so far will be the Parasite Eve, and my first one, which is my longest, my first video, needs a lot of work, but I enjoyed it. It's a good learning experience. Will be the Skies of Arcadia. I wanted to do that for Alice Madness. I feel if I do this right now, it will be a bit disrespectful for McGee. I didn't mention this earlier, but if you know, after EA told him no for the final time, he quit making games. He's retiring. And I think it's fair to say he fought a long, hard battle, and I don't blame him. I don't blame him. Alice from the McGee series, that's his baby. I'm sure that's all he wanted. And seeing this game Bible, it is, again, criminal. They said no to this. At least sell them the rights, but they don't want to do that either. sad. So I'm gonna make the video, maybe in his honor, maybe it's a little selfish of me, but I'm gonna make the video I usually do when it comes to games that I would like to assist. And I only do this for the sole purpose that I can't make a game. I don't have the fundings or the know-how. Skillshare is very good, but I don't have the time like that. But if someone else can see this video and get inspired to make a game, any game, and I just help them, that's why I do this. It's phenomenal. I like theorizing game and mechanics and systems, and I guess this is what I'm doing when Alice returns. Without any further ado, let's continue. My name is Definitely Not Bots. Please like, share, and comment, and let's get into the video on what would a sequel to Alice Madness could look like. So American McGee, Alice, that's the actual title of the game, it's kind of a rough game. Now, it was for the PC back in the 2000s. It gets a lot, and I mean a lot of flack for not being a good game. No, but it was a decent game. It was a good time. I looked at it as a third-person Doom, but not really. Right? That's the best way I can describe the gameplay of it. But here's the problem with that. A lot of people don't know about this game simply because it was competing with, small titles like Diablo 2, Counter-Strike, Deus Ex, Thief 2, Hitman Codename 47, and, the Operation, or the Operative, No One Lives Forever. Pretty good game. Perfect Dark, Baldur's Gate 2, EverQuest, and, that's just some of the small titles that American McGee was going up against back then. But I mean, she already lost when I said Diablos 2. The first game wasn't bad. I did enjoy it. It was a rough play for me. I'm gonna be honest with you. I didn't like the gameplay, but I did enjoy it enough to finish it once. I'm never gonna touch it again personally. Right? It's just not my type of game. If I'm gonna play Doom, I'm gonna play Doom, not third-person Doom. So let's quickly recap the story on the first game, so we can move to the second, and then to what if scenario. Alice, his name is Liddell, is a sole survivor of a tragedy that took her whole home and her family. Father was an amateur photographer. He left all his equipment on the fireplace in the living room, don't know why, and somehow he was a dean of a university. Mind you, Alice was like 6 or 4 at the time. Her family died, burn, and trauma, and then she spiraled into madness because survivor's guilt and depression. So she spirals into madness so much that she has to be admitted into an asylum. Mind you, she's still a child. After years in the asylum and suffering under treatment, she made Wonderland in order to escape her cruel reality. For some time, everything was okay until the Red Queen decided to become corrupt and started taking over Wonderland. The same story as the movies. Alice goes, deals with the Red Queen, everything gets well, and the only difference here is that Alice is the queen. An important note that people seem to have misconception or misconstrued when it comes to this topic of Alice being the queen is that the queen wants Alice to live. She's trying to protect her. She's like an altar, but not really. It gets more complicated, but just assume that they have the same objective, right? To save themselves, but they also have completely drastically different points of view when it comes to actually trying to do that. Their methods are different. For Alice, it's like we do it the right way. For the queen, is the means justify the end. And that's usually not a good idea, especially when it comes to mental health. Anyways, fast forward, Alice defeats the queen, things go okay, and she's out of the asylum. That's the first game. It's the most simple game of the two, but it's the one that sets everything off. One important thing to know before we move on to the next game, Alice Madness Return, is that Wonderland itself is literally Alice's delusion. Yeah, she's Delulu. The whole time, everything that's going on in Wonderland, it's just her delusions. Though they do help her deal with her mental fog or funk, whatever you want to call it, but it's still just her part of her delusion. Okay, so let's move into Alice Madness Return. So, The game opens up with her enjoying a boat ride with Mr. Rabbit, and then things get weird, rather fast. Yeah, no, she's still not okay. She's still not okay. Turns out Alice is in therapy with a Dr. Sir Angus Bumby. I'm gonna be real with you. I don't know a single good therapist in video games. I just don't. Let's not even give him a chance. But apparently he specializes in hypnosis. No one ever used hypnosis for evil means. Ever, said no one. Listen, I'll deal with you personally later, my guy. I will deal with you personally later. I'm going to quickly recap the events of the game because this game is more, I want to say 90%, maybe 95% gameplay. Yes, it's a thick girl when it comes to jumping, slashing, and shooting, plus puzzles. So keeping it brief, Wonderland once again is in danger, and Alice has to go inside Wonderland and figure out what is actually happening. Now, there's a few things that happen during the game that are a pinnacle to the actual story, but I want to focus on one aspect beforehand. Everybody in Wonderland is rude and mean.
Same. Find the Hatter, Alice. He knows more about different than you.
But does he know more about the difference between bad and good?
Making friends, Alice. You're as randomly lethal and entirely confused as you ever were.
I've managed without you so far, Cat. Return to whatever hovels home to you. I'll call if I need you.
Predictably rash. It's not a question of if, Alice, it's when. Now hold on, and as they say, shut up.
So typical.
And they just give her the runaround, and they don't even talk to her directly and give her the actual facts. Why is that? Well, Wonderland is a mirror of her world, right? Even though it's more lovely and vibrant, you know, she's trying to protect herself. She was a child when she created this, right? Come on. It is still just a mirror of the world. So she talks to herself, you know, all these different characters, the Mad Hatter and Cheshire Cat, for example, they are rude to her and they give her slap and lip for no reason, but they do nonetheless. That's just the way the world works, so that's the way she communicates with herself.
Ollie pinched me smalls.
We're bloomers.
The loo smells awful.
Worse than your room?
Tart with some rough edges, likes everything rough, I'll wager.
A handsome offer, but I've got an appointment with another man.
Well, girl, how hard do you want to make this?
You should know that doctor says I've a terrible disease.
Cool, great. We got that. Let's move on to the story. Alice is this guy's assistant, or the caretaker of the orphanage. Yeah, he runs an orphanage. This is very important and very bad. But one day, she goes out, finds a cat, gets jumped by a weird fishman, meets an old lady. She induces a panic attack, and Alice is back in Wonderland. From here on out, she learns a few things. The cat's still a dick to her.
Blasted cat. Don't try to bully me. I'm very much on edge.
Perfect. When you're not on edge, you're taking up too much space.
You're no help at all.
But you know I can be.
For no reason, but the cat is literally her manifestation of her intuition. She can tell something's wrong, she doesn't know what it is. And if Alice doesn't know, the cat wouldn't know. After the mechanics of the game are introduced, we get our weapons, and we know the actual objective. There's an infernal train literally just destroying Wonderland. Apparently, these black slugs are the manifestation of the train, and it's trying to erase everything. Now, that's the premise of the game. Figure out what's going on in Wonderland and who is operating this train and what's its purpose. Its purpose is again to destroy Wonderland. It's very good at it too. The game is going to go between the real world and Wonderland back and forth while you have to go through a long level to get little answers at the end. And that's going to be literally the game moving forward from here on out. Right, the first two levels are very inconsequential. The Bad Hatter location, nothing much happens in the story from there. And the sea world, nothing much happens there too as well. It's not until you get to the caterpillar where you actually learn who to talk to, and you go to the queen and she tells you what's up. And after that, Alice puts two and two together and realizes that this dick is the one who caused all her suffering since she was young. He's the cause of the fire. He's the cause of her losing her mind in the asylum when she was admitted when she was young. And now he's the cause of Wonderland's current state. It gets worse. He's been hypnotizing these kids into just being okay with being bought.
You oozing sore of depravity! Children wearing their names around their necks as if they're breeding livestock.
A declaration of their pedigree. You could use one. They're proud to display their provenance.
Now, these kids are all orphans, have nowhere to go, and he's just taking advantage of the situation to make a quick buck. It's also hinted that he also really wanted Alice. The fan art doesn't do any justice. I don't know why people draw this, but I saw it. Here you go. He also killed his sister after doing what he wanted to do with her. Like, honestly, I'm glad this happened at the end. Yes, Alice pushes this guy into the train. As it should. I'm glad no one saw that. I'm actually happy no one saw that. Now the game ends shortly after this, and Wonderland is now fused with the real world. It's called Londonland, but that's how it ends. It's pretty good. Let's talk about some negatives. Before we get into it, I need to make the distinction here. American McGee Alice, the first game, I didn't like the gameplay. So I'm not going to rip it a new one on a game that's literally 23 years old, and the gameplay wasn't for me. Right? It was serviceable, and it did what it needed to do. Now, Alice Madness Return, I like this game, but I have some bones to pick. So let's talk about it. First and foremost, combat is bare bones, and that's majority of the way you're going to interact with enemies. Now, there's a lot of enemies in this game, a good selection. But you know what's there's more of than enemies? Combat encounters. And there's a lot of combat encounters in this game. Granted, it's impressive that they stretched out the enemies they had with the amount of combat encounters there is in the game, but damn. Secondly, stages are way too long in this game. It's a slog to get through. You can make the argument that that's the way it is for anybody going through mental health. Things just take forever, progress is slow, arduous, and it's annoying. And yes, but this is a game. These levels are too long. Personally, after the second stage, things just take forever. The caterpillar stage takes an obnoxious amount of time. The queen just overstates his welcome, and the dollhouse is just a grind to get through. Though the gameplay itself is still entertaining, I found myself, this time around at least, taking breaks from the game because I'm just sick of the constant traversal. Like, sure, I'm hearing pig snouts all the time. You're gonna be doing this a lot. And yes, there is a lot of collectibles, so you have to look through every nook and cranny.
Lovely service, beautiful music, closed caskets, though I'm told your sister could have shown to advantage. The flames never got to her.
You're also gonna be doing this a lot. But Jesus, this game is thick. Like, my God. And the game knows this. That's why it tries to change the gameplay into like a shoot 'em up for 2 sections or a couple sections, depending on if you actually find the little clams that give you increased health. It does little questionnaires with the cat. It does 2D section here, which personally, I hate this. I personally hate this one. And it gives you the slide bridge. I also don't like this, but I'm gonna be real with you. This is gross. That's a tongue. That's a tongue. That's a huge tongue. Then we have the worst one of them all, the ball, the doll head. Oh my God, this one is so janky. I hate it. My last complaint about this game, though I still love it, I still like it, is that we spent too much time in Wonderland. Because believe it or not, the most interesting part of Alice's story is what happens outside. This game does throw the nugget of information that tells you that when Alice is in Wonderland, she is raving mad on the streets talking amongst herself. That's how she was found. Well, I didn't cover it, but the link's down below for the complete breakdown. But that's why she was found somehow in the river after the first stage. She's just crazy that way. That being said, I would love to see more of her day-to-day life when she's trying not to lose her mind and have a nice psychotic episode, which ends up with her being in Wonderland. In fact, it would be nice to see at least one instance when she's resistant being pulled into Wonderland and she's trying to like keep things together so she can get some answers from somebody. Or at least, you know, the doctor, the estate dude, whatever his name is. And that's my complaint on Alice Madness Return. It's just 3 items, right? Combat is too shallow. There's no combos. There isn't. I mean, sure, there's a dodge and there's a parry, but it's not enough, right? You get 2 melee options and you get 2 range options, and that's it. Stages are way too long. Everything just drag, like obnoxiously so. And maybe it's just me, but I would love a little break in between. I had to take a little break in between when it's a recent playthrough. And lastly, I would like to see her day-to-day life a little more, because that's really where all the story is. Like, sure, Wonderland, but like the stuff that actually happened to her that affects her in her day-to-day real life is happening outside of Wonderland, and we don't get to see that much of that because she's trying to like find some memories in Wonderland. But again, that's where most of the interest for me lies, because you know that's like where real consequences are happening. Now, those 3 things we talked about are what I'm going to address with the spiritual successor I have been in my mind. But before we even talk about that, please go look at this design Bible on Alice Asylum that American McGee made. It is phenomenal. It is phenomenal. You can see the love every single time you change the page. Every time you scroll down. Like, if I can get this as a physical copy, I will leave it unopened. That's how good it is. I'll get one digitally and I'll leave it unopened. Dude, this game, oh my God. Okay, let's not talk about it. It just makes me mad. Second, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It'll help me a ton. I'm trying to make it, feed my cats, you know how it is. Okay, cool. Now, before you click off the video, you already made it this far. You might as well see what else I have to say. It might be cool. You know, it could be something great. And if it's not, just rant or flame me in the comments. But at least watch it, okay? Thank you. Now, when it comes to spiritual successor, we're talking like Bloodstained Ritual of the Night type of game right here. We're talking like ukulele type of game right here. Like, this is the path we're taking. The games could be similar, but it has nothing to do with the prior game, you know, with the inspiration. That's what I'm talking about when it comes to spiritual successor. Before we get into the gameplay changes, this is just a rough story of what's going on of let's say character history. No, this isn't American McGee's Alice. This ain't EA's Alice. This is just a random Alice I thought of to justify the things I want to see in the spiritual successor. Again, if you're an indie developer and you just want to take these ideas and give me a shout out and become rich, money, whatever. I'm not a game developer. I just theorize all the time. Take it, do what you want. Back to the topic. Alice, after giving the doctor an early retirement, have left London. This takes about 7 years for her to resurface, and she opens up her own orphanage, actually trying to make amends for the things she didn't do in Madness Return. Alice is now an educated woman. She went to college for psych work. I know it's ironic, but as she was studying, she realized that half the stuff that was being taught was completely and utterly wrong. She tries to voice her opinion about this, but no one really cared. She also changed her name because her history will make it hard for her to be heard in college, so she changed it prior to that. Also, she just didn't want to be known on her past. No, it's not something she's proud of, but not something that she really wants people to just to know, you know? Logically speaking. So Alice graduated. But knowing that she couldn't do much to change the way the academic world views psych patients at the time, she decided to let it go and just travel, try to get her mind off this. One day she found a gypsy, a fortune teller, and she went up to her and be like, hey, I can see your world. I can see the cat you're talking to right now. And Alice lost her mind because no one she's ever known even hinted at Wonderland without her speaking about it. And now someone, a random gypsy, is telling her that she can actually see her and the cat she's talking to. This piques her interest. This woman is a fortune teller, but more importantly, she tells Alice she's a psychic, and that Alice is one too. You're either born with the gift or you're forced to learn it, much like Alice was. In order to protect herself, she made Wonderland. The gypsy was going to be in town for a while, and Alice and her began to talking about the world and everything that's going around, about what Alice has experienced. And the gypsy, being a fortune teller, going to tell her that she is needed elsewhere, but she should continue to process her gift. After a while, she was introduced to the elder of the gypsy, and Alice decided to follow them for a year. She wasn't a part of them, but she was following them for a year. The fortune teller kind of became her teacher, but she couldn't really give Alice a safe place to practice. She can't really teach her since she's a fortune teller, psychic, and Alice is a psychic. Dive into your own mind, psychic. By the way, if you don't like the idea of her being a psychic, I'm just gonna tell you, it is not new in media as a whole that if you go through something dramatic, like let's say the psych war, and you lose your mind, you come out with psychic powers. I've seen it happen so many times, so this is just something that makes sense. It also could be retrofitted into her character, given her history, so that's why I say she's psychic. As Alice is practicing her psychic abilities, one day she enters Mira's mind. This is where she learned about her specific ability and what she can do. Note, she can only enter the minds of the people that trust her. Other than that, she can't do it to just random people on the street. Alice has to know them and have a level of trust with them so she can enter their mind. When she enters her mind, she's just in a meditating state. After a few years of learning how to do this and going into in and out of people she trusts, or mostly her fortune teller and the gypsies, she decides to open up her own orphanage to help those kids who are less fortunate like her, who need to be heard and listened to and cared for and not just thrown in the asylum. While she's in this orphanage, she sometimes uses her powers to influence the kids, to give them hope or to help them get through their trauma, or help them gain more confidence, or just understand themselves a little better. But she doesn't do it maliciously. She's never him. One day, a group of children is entrusted into Alice's care. Apparently, these kids were found running around in a forest about a couple miles away from a burnt facility of some kind. It was a hospital, so they say. Remembering what the fortune teller said, that she will be needed, she understands that these kids will need her, especially since each one of them is a psychic. And that's basically the premise that I'm thinking about, right? There's enough going on around here to pique someone's interest and make stories about it, right? Like, what happened? What's going on? What happened in the past? She's running an orphanage. How is that? In fact, let's talk about how she would run an orphanage. This is going to be where the meat and potatoes are of the game, by the way. It's going to be breaking down into two sections: the orphanage and Wonderland. In the orphanage, Alice will have to manage the place and take care of the kids on her care. She isn't alone. She has an assistant, a cook / nanny, and a janitor / handyman. The assistant takes care of everything you assign them to do, but they're mainly a nurse. The cook makes all the meals, of course, and watches the young ones when you are busy. She also repairs clothes, sews them up and stuff. The handyman cleans and repairs toys, beds, and doors. If you ever worked at a daycare, you know that different kids gravitate to different staff members. It's just a natural thing to happen. So let's take the janitor for a second. Most of the boys like chilling with him because he plays, baseball, basketball, catch with them. So when you need to know some insight on some kid, you can go up to him, the janitor, and get greater insight from him. This happens a lot in daycares if you didn't know, by the way. Not only that, but if you help the janitor with get more supplies, with the repairs, with his tasks, he'll be more inclined to help you with the children. So it's a give and take kind of relationship. If everything's going well and everything's going nice and chill in the orphanage, he might just take them fishing, which greatly improves the morale of the orphanage. Another example is the cook could be making cookies to sell for more funding or for the kids to make them happier. Now, with proper planning and good management, you can do both. But it ain't just cookies, it's cupcakes, cakes, stuff like that. We also have a mailman. What he does is that he comes around and gives Alice the newspaper and letters from the gypsy or some of her friends. Does she even have friends? I don't think so. Either way, he has a thing for Alice, but that concept has been ruined for her. So platonic all the way. Now, the mailman is more like a shop. What he does is that you put orders through him and he brings in, the groceries. You're not just gonna go out and shop for yourself. Now you can send the assistant to shop for you, but if one of the kids are sick, she can't do it. She's too busy tending to that child. As soon as someone is sick, maybe 2, maybe 3, she's booked for the whole day. If you want to buy, let's say, seeds to plant, the mailman has to go and get them. That being said, since he has to travel to the town and back to the orphanage, what could happen is that if there's a storm or there's a heat wave, he could be running late or he's just not showing up for that day. So you have to plan accordingly with the possibility that, hey, I don't want to run out of food before he gets here. Since you are running an orphanage and that's not cheap and Alice can't pay that forever, you have funding. What you do is that you teach the kids the basics of schooling: writing, reading, mathematics, arts, and history. In case you didn't know, some orphanages are also schools. Think of it as boarding schools, and then basically the concept is the same. It's like Hogwarts, but safer and not as magical. So if your kids get good marks, you get more funding, but you can't always focus on the schooling side of things because then they aren't as happy, and it's a balance act. Except art. Depending on how cool the stuff they make, you might be able to sell it, or they might be able to get, adopted. And if they get adopted, you get a nice chunk of change for that. I know it sounds wrong, but there is a feed when you're adopting a kid. There is a feed, so you're buying a human, but it's not like that, okay? Calm down. Now, let's just quickly gloss over that, and let's talk about the residents of Wonderland. You will see them around, the boarding school. You will just see them chilling, doing their thing. The cat's always walking around, talking, mumbling, giving you tips. The right rabbit could be keeping tabs on a different location in the house just for you, so you know what's going on. And this is how Alice is known to have eyes in the back of her head. She just knows what's going on everywhere because some resident of Wonderland is keeping her informed. Let's use the right rabbit. You can be outside, either planting seeds or braiding someone's hair. And then he's like, hey Alice, come up here real quick. So you go upstairs and see 2 boys roughhousing. How do you know? The rabbit told you, but they don't know that. And that's how the residents can help you. Now, on occasion, the Queen of Hearts will show up and she'll follow a kid. Or she'll just be around a kid, chilling. This is an indication that you should pay attention to this child specifically and see what's going on. Maybe you're not meeting their needs, maybe they're not happy, maybe they're about to fight somebody. Who knows? But you should do something about it. Now, if you see the Red Queen in cards, that means you've been neglecting this child for a long time and things are going downhill. They might just run away. And if they run away, that's a problem for you. Too many runaways and your orphanage gets shut down. One last thing. For the children that are psychic and under Alice's care, they can see the residents of Wonderland, but they don't talk to each other, right? So one kid is drawing a picture and it happens to be the Mad Hatter, right? He's like, he's my friend, he follows me. And you're like, okay, cool. So now you have Mad Hatter keeping tabs on a kid that you are actually interested because they also are psychic with you. So now that's a level of intrigue that can go deeper into conversation, dialogue, and all that stuff. Now I'm sure you can handle this, right? I'm sure this won't be an issue because you have to juggle the orphanage, your staff, the funding, the healthcare, the school supply, the food, the relationship between the kids, the residents of Wonderland, and the mailman. But that seems too easy. So the mailman, assuming this is time period appropriate like it was with Alice Madness, he brings a radio. A radio is busted, but once you pay to repair it by the janitor, the kids can listen to music and the news. And there's not a lot of good news. So if it's raining outside, well, they're down. If they hear about the flu, well, the kids are down again. If they hear about, I don't know, fire, they're down as well. And now you gotta manage their morals with the news. This also can go other way. It could be a bright and sunny day. There could be news about a festival. There could be news about, I don't know, a sale. There could be news about a giant boat, the Titanic, cough cough. Random events that can shake up the morale of the orphanage. And you're supposed to juggle this while juggling the rest of the orphanage as well. So it's a good and a bad. But if you don't want to deal with it, you can just turn it off. But slowly, the morale will go down because kids aren't dancing to music and swing tunes. So hopefully you see what I'm going with, right? After a certain time of you understanding the basics of the game, the radio will be introduced, and that's where you get the random element of chaos. It wouldn't be too drastic, but enough to switch up how you would tackle the day given the news given to you. If it's a very easy day, the kids are happy, you don't have to really do much to, make them happy. You don't have to read books, you don't have to do puppet shows, you don't have to play with them. They can just be happy chilling among themselves while you have a free moment to help the cooking, the laundry, order some food, tend to the garden, stuff like that. That's that section. That's the orphanage. And hopefully you can see what I'm getting at here. You now have a world you can interact with outside of Wonderland. In Alice Madness Return, 90% of the game was Wonderland. It's not bad, but all you did was jumping, running, slashing, and shooting. That's a lot of jumping, running, slashing, and shooting, by the way. But now you have something to do outside of Wonderland, which is really good. Okay, I can't deny it any longer. I can't lie to you guys anymore. This whole thing was inspired by Persona. I mean, if you can tell, by all the stuff you have to manage in the real world. And then you can go have fun in the Wonderland, which we'll get to shortly. But when it comes to this dual gameplay system, think of Persona, Sonic Adventure 2, Harvest Stella, Cult of the Lamb, and any Atelier game, like seriously, any Atelier game. Basically having two gameplay styles that have systems that interlink and overlap with each other. So let's move on to Wonderland. It's pretty much what you expect from a 3D action title. Think of combos, weapons, ability, costumes.
Behind you! Watch out!
It's what you come to expect from Madness Return, but with today's technology and conventions of gaming. Naturally, you will have your fire level, you will have your water level, and your thunder level. As you know, the main focus in Wonderland, or Alice is using her ability, is, well, these psychic kids. So, their realm, their Wonderland, if you will, would reflect the treatment they suffer under. For example, the thunder area could be a kid who went under electroshock therapy. So Alice, in his Wonderland, has to dodge thunder, conduct it to open paths, solve problems with it, use magnetism, stuff like that. Another kid that went under sensory deprivation treatment could literally just have a black, pure black realm, and you have to stay under sunlight to survive. Stuff like that. Now, this will be structured like any 3D adventure title. Think of the Darksiders, God of War, Kena, Bridge of Spirits. This game does not get enough love. It really doesn't. And I hope they have enough money or got a green light for a second game, because this is good. Back to the topic. Alice has to make her way through the conscious mind, the subconscious mind, and make it all the way into the inner self, where she can actually affect and see what's going on with the child. Wait a minute. This sounds a lot like Inception. I gotta stop using this sound. The way Alice progresses through their minds will be that she has to find save point. Again, think of it as the save room from Persona 5. You can spawn in there and move on forward. But if the kid isn't feeling well, if there's schoolyard drama, or if they're sick, you lose the ability to spawn in that location, or you lose the ability to go into the child's head in general until the issue is resolved, and you rebuild their trust. Nope, you will never lose access to the inner self once you unlock it, because you just have the cheat codes, you know how to get there. It's done. They trust you with their lives. To progress through the kids' minds, sometimes you have to do something outside. Whether it be giving them a birthday party, a cake, hearing them out, letting them play, letting them get happy enough so they can just be okay talking to you more. Which is the reason why you're going to be bouncing back between the Orphanage and Wonderland. Now, with the kids already being in your care, you can choose what order to help them, or if you can do them all at once. This is where it's for the players themselves to do whatever they want and how they tackle their Wonderlands or their game progression. Think of it like Final Fantasy Lightning Return. You can clear every main area in the game however you want, but the end game is always the same. So if the janitor takes out a kid for fishing, you can just hop into another kid's mind and start helping them while the other one's busy. And of course, you unlock abilities as you progress through these kids' minds. So again, we'll focus on the Thunder one, right? You can take your Thunder abilities and go into the darkness of this kid who was tortured with just being in solitary confinement and light up his world so you can make your way through it. Stuff like that. That's pretty much the gameplay of Wonderland. Of course, you have your combos. You have your secrets, your collectibles, right? You have your little stage transitions. As you can see, you have reason to go in Wonderland and get out of Wonderland to tend to the kids and the orphanage. The better the orphanage goes, the better the travels in Wonderland will be. So let's take off dinner. If you make something really good that the kid really likes, when you go into his mind, or their mind, you have a food buff. You're gonna have increased points when you slay enemies or their fears. You can use those points to upgrade your character, stuff like that. Like, it's natural to see this in a game. Would the game ever be made? I don't know. So that was a lot, right? Let's do a quick rundown of what everything was just said here. Alice now runs an orphanage. She needs to manage the staff while taking care of the kids. This involves their schooling, the playtime, the meals, and the adoption process as well. A certain group of kids is entrusted to Alice. They were found wandering miles away from a burnt asylum, or it could be a hospital. But let's say asylum because it's in theme. Alice, using her abilities, will dive into the kids' mind to help them with their trauma and piece together the mystery of what happened in the asylum. Does this sound like a game you would like to play? I know I would. I know my wife will. I know many people would like to. I'm just making this video as an inspiration for someone to try something. Again, go look up the Alice Asylum game Bible. It's amazing, please. Not enough props goes to American McGee for making that happen. No, that doesn't need to be the same Alice. In fact, Alice in Wonderland in general is public domain. So if you really want to, you can make this Alice a redhead, since we got the blonde and the black hair. Or this is brunette, I don't know the difference. You can change some past events or just give her a whole new origin. Remember, this is a spiritual successor, so you can do what you want, like Ida did in Ritual of the Night. Thank you for hearing me out for so long, and this has been quite a long video, but hopefully you see that everything I said here comes from a place of love for the franchise and inspiration. If you want this, take it. I don't care. Just give me a shout out. Put a box. Put my box face in the game somehow, somewhere. Make a kid wear it, then kick him out. Give me your thoughts down below, please. Give me a comment, anything. I love American McGee's Alice. It's an enjoyable experience. Long game, but I still got sat through it. And I'll catch you on the next one.